Visiting my best friend in North Carolina.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 2023 Women of Distinction Alumni Panel. I'm Deidre Davis, the Dean of Student Services. I'm really happy to be live and in person for the first time since 2019 for this particular event. So thank you all for being here. It's great to see faculty and staff and so many students in the room. So thanks for coming. At this time, I would like to introduce our MC. Claire Felix graduated with a BS in International Business and Logistics and was valedictorian of her class of 2022. She remained at MMA this year to complete her master's in International Logistics Management and to serve as an assistant coach for the women's basketball program. During her basketball career, Claire was the Lindsay Smith Team Leadership Award winner twice. She was a 4-time recipient of the Athletics Department Elite 8 Award, which recognizes student athletes with the highest cumulative GPA in each academic class. Last year, she was named both the Maine Maritime Academy Senior Scholar Athlete and the North Atlantic Conference Women's Basketball Senior Scholar Athlete. Claire was also the president of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and she held the most prestigious honor in the women's basketball program, which is the owner of the Ed and Louise Biggie Locker. So please welcome Claire Felix.
Hi, everyone. As part of MMA's celebration of Women's History Month, we've invited an amazing group of MMA graduates to be with us today. These women help to lay the foundation for what our women students are able to accomplish today in the classroom, on the athletic fields and courts, in the regiment, aboard ships, and ashore. It is great to see so many students, faculty, and staff. Thank you all so much for being here. Once I've read the bios of our panelists, I will open up with a question and then we'll allow the audience to begin asking questions. Deidre will bring a microphone to you so that everyone can hear your question. You may ask a specific person or ask generally. I do have several questions ready up here if you're slow to jump in. Following the event, many of our panelists will be joining us for dinner in the Harbor View room. We invite you all to join us for more conversation. If you're not on a meal plan, please see Deidre at the close of the event for a meal ticket. And now, without further ado, I introduce to you our panelists. So first up, we have Genevieve Black. Genevieve earned her BS in Marine Biology from Maine Maritime Academy in 2014 and her MS in Sustainable Natural Resource Management from Unity College in 2018. She has been teaching in Maine for 6 years and before that worked at the Maine Department of Marine Resources and Lobster Science. Her teaching experience in Maine has taken her from Mid-Coast School of Technology to Mount View High School to Booth Bay Sea and Science Center, and she currently works at Belfast Area High School. Jenna holds a passion for fisheries science, the lobster industry, and most things under the waves. She is very excited to be included in the mission on marine-themed cross-disciplinary education. Next up, we have Katie Burdett. Katie earned her BS in Power Engineering Technology from Maine Maritime Academy in 2018. While attending, she was a member and president for 1 year of the Society of Women Engineers MMA chapter. She also obtained fantastic internships where she spent 2 summers at natural gas and coal power plants owned by Dynegy and 1 summer spent building a natural gas power plant in Ohio with Bechtel. She began her career with Field Corps in July of 2018 as a generator specialist and quickly cross-trained as a mechanical gas turbine field engineer. Though she loved that job, she decided to pursue opportunities with less travel and entered the renewable industry. During her time in the renewable industry, she gained experience as a solar technician, project manager, and eventually execution segment leader. In November of 2022, she chose to take some time away from industry to enjoy family, friends, life, and is now currently exploring the many opportunities that an MMA degree can offer her. While in the search for her next career move, she enjoys spending time with her husband, Jordan, doing their favorite activity of snowmobiling, which includes an annual trip out west to Wyoming and Montana. They are also crazy dog parents to their 3 dogs, Maddie, Reese, and Millie, which keep them extremely busy. Next up, we have Lila Eldridge. Lila earned her BS in Vessel Operations and Technology from Maine Maritime Academy in 2019. While attending, she was a member of the Women on the Water, Propeller Club, and the women's rugby team. She began her career at Interlake Steamship Company on the Great Lakes in December of 2019 as an AB. Due to COVID-19 and the inevitability of ships being laid up, she was laid off in April of 2020. She got a job in May of 2020 for Crowley Fuels in Western Alaska on a wire boat. After 2 seasons of towing in Alaska, she wanted to further her professional career with Crowley. She transferred to Crowley Petroleum Services in December 2021, where she was placed on the ATB Liberty/750-3 to fulfill a permanent third mate billet. She gained a lot of knowledge moving multiple clean-grade petroleum products in the Gulf of Mexico and was promoted to second mate in November of 2022. In addition to life at sea, she can be found at home with her dog, Schaefer, and her fiancé, Sam. She enjoys hiking, ice fishing, and riding her horses. Next, we have Kristen Gear. Kristen earned her BS in Marine Engineering Technology from Maine Maritime Academy in 2020. While attending, she was a member of the women's lacrosse and swim teams. During her senior year, she was a regimental senior striker and the student treasurer for the Women on the Water Club. She was also an engineering representative for the Student Government Association and an admissions liaison. After graduation, she stood watches on the TSOM during the COVID pandemic. Kristen then joined AMO and sailed on the Great Lakes as a third assistant engineer with Key Lakes, Inc. for a short period of time. In February of 2021, she accepted a position with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA, and sailed as a third assistant engineer on one of their ocean mapping research vessels out of Ketchikan, Arkansas. She currently holds a second assistant engineer motor's license and is still sailing with NOAA. In her spare time, she enjoys traveling to Europe, hiking, trying new foods, and spending time with her friends and family. Next, we have Morgan Gilson. Morgan earned her BS in marine biology from Maine Maritime Academy in 2017. While attending, she was a founding member of the women's lacrosse team and was one of the team's first 4-year athletes. She was a member of the Honor Board, Title IX Advisory Committee, and helped out with new student orientation. Since graduating, she has lived in Southern California for a year where she worked at a local wildlife center. After moving back to Maine, she worked for the Department of Marine Resources and Marine Biotoxins, then in the oil field, before settling into her current position at IDEX as a QC analyst. Outside of her professional life, she married her college sweetheart, adopted her sassy husky, and enjoys being on the water, reading, and woodworking. Next, we have Carrie Jones. Carrie earned her BS in International Business and Logistics in 2013 and decided to stay an additional year to receive her MS in Global Logistics and Maritime Management from Maine Maritime Academy. During her time at MMA, Carrie was a member and captain of both the women's soccer and basketball teams and also tutored business calculus. After her junior year, she completed her internship with Ingram Barge Company, where she gained valuable insight about the country's inland waterway industry. Upon graduation in 2014, Carrie accepted a role with Walmart Logistics as a receiving manager for the Regional Distribution Center in Lewiston, Maine, and was in that position for 1.5 years before accepting a position with Sappi North America as a logistics engineer in South Portland. Currently entering her 7th year with the company, Carrie has been a part of both the domestic and international logistics department, troubleshooting any issues with customer service deliveries, process improvement projects, and global rate negotiations. As a supply chain lead, her main responsibilities today include managing a team that oversees the U.S. exports and European imports. Outside of work, Carrie continues to play basketball and spend time with her friends and family in Portland, Maine, all while spoiling her dog Tilly with all the dog collars from So Fetch Dog Company. Next, we have Casey Roberts. Casey is a 2013 grad of the IBL program. While at MMA, she was an active member of the women's soccer team, where she made friends that have lasted 10 years post-graduation. Immediately following graduation, she started a job with Machias Savings Bank as a customer service agent and moved almost immediately to an assistant branch manager position in Ellsworth, Maine. When an opportunity arose to move back to Machias with the Varney Agency, she changed career paths into insurance. After getting married to her husband, Isaiah Roberts, who was also a 2010 MEO grad, Casey started her own business to have more time at home with Isaiah, who was shipping at the time, and their kids. Casey and Isaiah have 3 little ones, Lincoln, age 6, Archer, age 2, and Parker, who was born in January of 2023. Casey's business, So Fetch Dog Company, grew 100% year over year for the first 4 years. She since opened her own storefront and has been steady in growth and in sales. She now employs 4 people year-round to keep the business functioning. So Fetch dog collars, harnesses, and more are sold in over 150 locations all over the USA, as well as in Canada, Spain, Italy, France, the UK, and more. She has customers from as far as Australia, Japan, South Korea, and beyond. When Casey started So Fetch, she had zero intention of it ever being able to be a full-time career, let alone globally sold product. But nearly 7 years later, So Fetch continues to grow and become a more and more recognized brand. In her free time, Casey enjoys spending time with her family at their camp on Fulton Lake. Next up, we have Heather Santana. Heather earned her BS in International Business and Logistics from Maine Maritime Academy in 2012. While attending, she was a member of the women's volleyball team, NROTC, and the Maritones, which was an a cappella group. She served in the Marine Corps for 6 years in California, Afghanistan, and Virginia. Heather left the Marine Corps in 2018 at the rank of captain and joined a consulting firm that assisted clients like the Department of Veterans Affairs. In 2021, she earned an MA in Non-Governmental Organization Management from Johns Hopkins University and has worked in operations for nonprofits ever since. Heather lives in Massachusetts with her husband of 11 years, who is also an MMA alumni, and their 4 children. And the last panelist I'm going to introduce is Ava Traina. Ava received her BS in International Business and Logistics, summa cum laude, from Maine Maritime Academy in 2020. While attending, she was involved with student life as a resident assistant for 2 years, vice president of student government, member of the Student Business and Logistics Association, and played on the women's basketball team for 2 years. Ava interned at FW Webb and Siemens Industry, Inc., where she began her career shortly after graduation in Boston, Massachusetts. Siemens has provided a multitude of opportunities and has promoted Ava twice since onboarding in June of 2020. She currently works on the energy team as a sales executive in Total Energy Management Performance Contracting in Scarborough, Maine. Ava bought a house in Scarborough in May of 21 and has enjoyed DIY rental projects, beach walks with her 10-month-old Labradoodle puppy, Noli, short for Magnolia, coaching JV basketball at Portland High School, and traveling as much as possible with family and friends. Thank you again so much to all of our alumni. You've all done so much to pave the way for the students who come after you. And I'll now open up with a question to get us going, and then I'll turn it over to the audience. So my first question is, can any of you describe briefly what you left MMA with besides a valuable diploma and/or license?
I can go. I'd say that the biggest thing I left here with was confidence. I definitely came to Maine Maritime Academy lacking in that area, and 4 years of ROTC, volleyball, like just being here in an environment away from, where I grew up, gave me a ton of confidence to just tackle whatever came my way afterwards.
Awesome. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add?
I'd say friends that became family. So everyone that graduates from here has gone through something that no one else really understands, and you get into industry and everyone has your back, and if you're trying to get promoted or you're looking for a new job, you can probably find someone from MMA and they're going to take you under their wing. So that was huge.
Nice. Okay, anyone else? Okay. All right, any students have any questions? Jacqueline?
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Castro. I'm a freshman here, and I am IBO. One question I would have would be, out of the years that you had during MMA, staying here, what is one advice you would give us, freshmen or sophomores, juniors, one advice that you can give to us?
I've got one. Especially for people who aren't already in their senior year, don't waste your time here. Just take every single minute that you're in Castine, you're enjoying this place. Enjoy it to the fullest because it goes so fast. And once you're out in the real world, you don't get to come back. And you're going to miss every single bit of it. Even the long drive down the Castine Road that feels like you're on the edge of the earth and you're stuck here for 4 years. You're not stuck. You get to enjoy it. So really try to do that.
I'm going to jump off of that as well. So I was a 2020 grad, and my time here got cut pretty short. So I would say I definitely don't take advantage of it, going off of what you said. The other thing is get involved as much as you possibly can. I was involved in a lot, and it was on purpose because I didn't want to stay stagnant, and I wanted to meet a bunch of people, which has proved to be really helpful in my years after MMA. I've met a lot of great people who have taken care of me in a lot of ways after. So, and meet them.
Just adding what the other two panelists had to say, take your classes very seriously, even if you're freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Take advantage of every class, I would say, because you can't do a do-over. I took a tankers class as an addition, supplement my degree, and I didn't think I'd be moving 13.5 million gallons during my career, and loading and discharging it, and being on the DOI as a single person that is responsible for it. So, didn't know that was going to be my career path, but I like to do it, and I hope to be a chief mate one day, and that's the primary responsibility.
I kind of add on to what everybody else said as well about being involved, staying active, because not only does it add to your own enrichment here on campus, but it also provides additional opportunity to grow that alumni base, to grow that community that will last with you for years and years after you leave Maine Maritime. To touch on the point of classes, I can't recommend enough to go outside of your own major for those, accessorial classes that may support or be something different. As an IBL major, I ended up taking Cargo 101, and same kind of story now that I am moving container ships around the world, just having a basic understanding of what is a container, what does it mean when a ship does this or that, how do these damages occur. It just brings more light to the whole industry depending on where you want to go. So don't stay purely focused in your own major. Yes, your core classes are important, take them seriously, but don't be afraid to look on the outside as well.
I'd also say don't be afraid to ask your teachers about their experiences. Professors like Professor Langford or Birdie, they have really amazing stories about their time in their fields, and you can learn a lot from them, or a really good laugh too.
I just want really quick, I want to jump on what Morgan's saying. I think probably weekly, some of the things that Professor Langford said in class, one of which being the oil field never sleeps, meaning like if you have work to do, it doesn't matter if you're tired, like you answer your emails, you answer your text messages, your phone calls, it doesn't matter because they're waiting on it and you need to do your job.
I guess I have some advice that's a little on theme for today, and that is, don't make your goal to be one of the boys when you can be so much more.
Yeah.
That was all really great advice. Thank you, guys. All right, next question.
Kira, Marine Systems Engineering 4-year. Are there any challenges that you guys have faced as women in industry?
Oh, what a loaded question.
So we were actually all talking about that up here before we started. So I think women in industry, we just have a special way of going about things. For me specifically, I've either been in outage or construction work for the last 5 years, and it's really difficult. And in my profile, they'd said that I, in November kind of took some time off, and that's because the burnout for me was real. You get into anything. I mean, we all talk. I mean, I'm sitting here with 2 cell phones. A lot of us have 2 cell phones up here and are working all the time. And it's something that you have to pace yourself, you have to do self-preservation, because as a female, I personally felt, and I think a lot of people up here would feel, like you have to prove yourself constantly. And that's something that we'd love to get away from, but I don't think that we ever will, because we know we can do so much, and in a male-dominated field, that can be difficult. So I'd say, you know, have confidence in what you do, always work with integrity, it doesn't matter what else is happening. And I mean, just be confident, because you're going to have challenges, you're gonna be in a male industry, and I mean, I've worked with thousands of men throughout construction sites, and I mean, there's maybe a handful that have been condescending or been difficult. The rest of them, they're gonna take you under your wing, you're gonna become a little sister, you're gonna become a daughter, and it can be really fulfilling. But, you know you're gonna put the time in. You know, I'm not in the oil field, but I mean, you put the time in, you work, and you make a name for yourself, and hopefully it's a good one.
Nice. Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess first and foremost, I just want to say I have never had a bad experience working on a ship or a tugboat or anything. The crew I currently have, I've been with over a year, and they're the best crew I've ever had. They were very welcoming. They taught me everything. I still ask questions. I guess the biggest thing is I was never afraid to be myself and to go to them. So I am the only female on my crew of 13, but it doesn't feel like that. And that's in a good place. You're in a good place if it feels like that. They're basically family to me. I trust them with my life. It doesn't matter if they're the cook or the utility or the chief engineer. I respect every single one of them. And I guess, you know, take care of yourself, you know, if you are the only female, because you pretty much, you know, have yourself to count on in that department. But at the same time, don't be afraid to, you know, get comfortable with them, rely on them, ask them questions, you know, let them teach you. As long as you can do the job, it doesn't matter if you're a male or female.
I'd like to add on to being yourself in a male-dominated environment. As someone who was in the Marine Corps, you know, I often looked around at my peers and saw these like big, tough alpha males, and I was like, you know, I'm not like that. And it's easy to doubt yourself when you see that, but if you really just lean into being yourself and trust yourself, and lean into your strengths, which, you know, might not look like, again, the other people around you, their exact strengths, you know, you'll be successful.
Nice. Okay, next question.
Oh, so many hands.
Sorry.
Go, Deidre, go.
I know.
At first,
Hi, I'm in the regiment, 4th class. My name is Ella Bose, and I'm currently in Marine Engineering Technology. This is kind of towards the like Marine Engineering Technology, MTO kind of majors, and also yeah. So while you're shipping out and stuff like that, is there anything you do whenever you feel like you're overwhelmed? Because I know I have a tendency when I'm surrounded by the same people, like I can either get a little bit snippy, stuff like that. What do you do when you feel like you're starting to get like that?
For me, like, kind of go to the gym. Most ships have gyms. I mean, my schedule is 2 months on, 1 month off. So, like, at that 2 month point when you're really getting frustrated with people or frustrated with your job, it's kind of that good sweet spot where you're just like, okay, I'm going on vacation, time to relax. But, I mean, for the most part, you can just blow off steam at the gym, go to your room, talk to people. I'm on a ship with like 45 people, so that helps. Yeah.
I guess just adding on what Kristen said, I work 45 days on, 45 days off, and it might not seem like a lot of days, but I tell you by day like 40, I'm over it, I want to go home. And my whole crew is, ever since COVID, we do mass crew changes. So before they were, people could do 45 days, 45 off. they could kind of stagger. So you always had fresh crew coming in, and that really boosted the morale. Being on I'm basically on a ship, but being on a vessel where you're all starting at the same point, ending at the same point, you kind of get short with each other. But I go to the gym, I make it a point, even if I don't want to go. I work 12 hours every single day, and I just, work it into my schedule that I have to make that time for myself. And you talk to the people on your vessel. They're a good support system, and they're all usually feeling the same exact way. So.
Awesome, thank you.
I'm Emma White. I'm a sophomore in the Marine Engineering Technology program. Specifically for you, Kristen, how hard or easy was it for you with your company to upgrade your license?
Super easy. I upgraded to my second engineer license at the beginning of this month, and I've only been out of school for 2-3 years. So it just depends on if you want to stay. Like, I got hired in not the height of COVID, but it was really hard for us to get off the boat. We were doing 90 days out to sea, only pulling in for fuel. And I just decided to stay for 5 months straight and get that sea time. So it also depends on what companies you go with too. The oil field, you get time and a half. Government jobs, at least NOAA, I think MSC falls under this. Our import days are equal to our sea days, so that helps too. It just depends on the company you go to and how long you go out for.
And then a follow-up question for you, specifically about cadet shipping. How was your experience? And then I'll extend this question to all the other panelists, your co-op experiences as well. Did you take full advantage of that, or just explain how it was and how you benefited from it?
I had a blast on my cadet shipping. I went with MSC. I was on a steamship, and I was on the Navy. People called it the party ship of the Navy because it was a command ship. So that probably, made me have a better time than most. But I learned a lot. You have your steam lab, junior, senior year. You don't get anything, you don't really learn much about steam before your cadet shipping. And to be able to work on a ship that I didn't have any experience on was great. And there was also a lot of cadets from SUNY, Cal. I went with one of my friends. So it was a lot of fun, good learning experience. All of the engineers, they really wanted help because they get bored, They also didn't have any internet, so yeah, we'll help you with your project. What do you need? And so it was definitely good.
Nice. Do we have any other questions? I saw a hand over here.
Any other co-op experiences that you want to chime in about before they move on?
I'll chime in with mine. It kind of goes along the theme of going outside of, maybe what you think you would want for a co-op. But also any experience you can get as a sophomore and start there and then do your mandatory junior. Any experience is great experience. My sophomore year, I got myself involved with the warehouse, learned from the ground up what was it like to pick something from the shelf, to shipping it, to going on truck runs, early morning. So really, for logistics, seeing it start to finish, and having that background to assist with future classes to have a better understanding what the teachers may be talking about. And really, when I was with Ingram Barge as a junior, getting away from Maine, seeing a whole different part of the country, a whole different industry, really opened my eyes. So it's easy to stay in Maine. It's easy and maybe cheaper to stay in Maine, or whatever you want to get out of your summer. But for your career, for your opportunities, challenge yourself to go find someplace else, because you will probably come back to Maine at some point. So.
Good evening. First of all, I just want to say thank you all for coming here, the audience, and all our panelists. My name's Molly. I'm a senior in MTO and minoring in business. My question kind of goes out to all the women who work on ships. And my question to you was, what was your biggest takeaway from your ship, either deck and engine?
That's a good one.
You go.
All right. Biggest takeaway, I guess. The biggest thing for me, my career initially started as far as with Crowley in Western Alaska, where I was on very teeny tiny tugboats, operating in very remote areas, villages, literally delivering heating fuel for people to survive the winter. So I gained a lot of different knowledge, I guess, and I was just constantly learning. It was more of a manual labor job. And then when I transferred to the vessel I'm on now, it was a much bigger scale. I had 3 days to train, and I was essentially a third mate, but it was a completely different job. And so I felt very overwhelmed, and I had 3 days overlap with my relief, and then I was cut loose completely on my own in charge of all the safety equipment, safety inspections, life-saving equipment. Just take your job very seriously. Like, even if your job is going around inspecting 100 fire extinguishers in one day, I have taken stuff out of service. I have taken vital life-saving equipment out of service, and I have gone to the office and suggested, safety improvements, and that's my job. I'm a safety officer on board. So even if your job seems mundane, inspecting the first aid kit, I'm also the medical officer on board. That stuff is important, especially when someone needs it. So I guess that was my biggest thing, because it can get very boring. You're like, oh, those are the life rafts, but recently, on my last hitch, I replaced life raft straps, and also we switched out all of our life rafts on both the tug and the barge, and I had some life raft straps that were, weeks within failing. And that was a big safety improvement. So it's, again, like I had noticed they were deteriorating. Took a while for the straps to come in because of the supply chain. So it's kind of like, just take your job really seriously.
Mine is probably don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, yeah, you just graduated, you got your degree, passed your coasties. You're not going to know everything, and that's why you're third mate or third engineer, and there's a second, a first, and a chief above you. Like, they would rather you ask questions than also try to figure it out a little bit, But, like, if you don't know something, they would be more comfortable with you telling them, hey, I don't understand this, can we work through this together? Or I've never done this before, yeah, I can read a book, but I've never put my hands on it, or something like that. So just don't be afraid to speak up, say something, and ask a question.
Just adding to what Kristen had to say, I have a chief mate right now, and the very first thing he said to me was, if you don't know something, say so. Don't start it off by guessing. He absolutely hates that. I think that's his biggest pet peeve. So still to this day, I've been there over a year, and if I genuinely don't know how to do something, I just say, I don't know. And there's no shame in doing that.
Awesome, that's really great advice. Oh, we have a question? Hold on, the mic's coming. Right up here.
Okay, we'll go here and then you hand forward.
Okay. And then we have another one up here.
Hi, my name's Sierra. I'm in the International Business and Logistics program here, and I'm currently a junior. So I am coming up on my last year. And I guess my biggest question is, did you guys feel prepared when you left here? Any advice that you have for me going into the real world? Because that's pretty scary to me. Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and take this one first, because I went in a direction that was pretty different than I thought I was going to end up in when I graduated. So I was in the marine biology program. I went right to the DMR. I was doing lobster science. I was on lobster boats. It was great. And then winter happened, and they don't do that. So I started substitute teaching because I needed money to live, but I really loved it. And the amount of transferable skills that I did have, even with kind of a niche experience in terms of education, I think that one of the things that this place is really good at is teaching you how to use what you know, just as much as teaching you what you need to know. Because as a science teacher, I was really actually prepared to teach the science that I learned. So I felt really good. And, Professor Verdi's here. The number of times I have had to think about his cell bio class is a lot more than I would have hoped at the time I was taking it. But here we are. And some of my students would probably thank him for teaching me what he did.
I guess I'll say that in the sense of being ready when you leave Maine Maritime, there's probably always going to be a sense of like, no, you're not going to know everything. But coming from Maine Maritime, the classes that you are put through, the projects that you're put through, the skills that you learn to complete those projects, to work with your team doing those projects, the communication skills that you build, the questions that you force yourself to ask, the confidence you get to like approach a teacher to say, I don't understand. Those are all those types of skills that you may learn in a classroom here on any sports or sports teams and or groups that you're a part of that will transfer into the real world. Some of the classes you may take, you'll understand terms theoretically and at least be knowledgeable about them. But until you get your hands on it and have the real life experience, that's when you'll be like really ready to deal with it.
And I'll jump off that, talking about soft skills, right? Organization, communication. So when I hire people, I look for soft skills. You can teach people technical skills all day long. You can go to a different field completely. And if you have those soft skills, you know how to communicate, you have a willingness to learn, that's what's important.
I would also jump in that just because you're graduating doesn't mean that this is it and you can't come back to ask questions. When I was in line for promotion, I actually called or emailed Professor Langford, asked him to call me so that we could talk through what I was about to go through, and he helped me work it through. So just because you're leaving Castine doesn't mean that Castine is leaving you.
I have one more thing to add. In the career that I'm in now as a small business owner, I've owned this business for 6 years and I still feel sometimes like I'm faking it till I make it. Like I wake up sometimes and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I can't believe that people pay me to do this. And that I'm the boss. I'm the one in charge and I have people that I'm in charge of. But I do know, I have to dig down deep and say, Casey, you can do this. You do it every year. Making it through the spring as a retail business is terrifying every year. It's just very hard. I lost my train of thought. Why did Maine Maritime help me get there? So I look back on the fact that, I do have a degree in business. I'm not faking it until I make it. Like I'm very much capable of running the business, and I have. So I look back on that sometimes to give me the confidence to keep doing it every day.
I'll add one more thing before we get the last question. I would say no matter what you learn here, you come away with resilience, which is huge in the real world, because once you get out there, things aren't going to happen the way that you think they are, for better or worse. When I graduated, I was ready to leave this place, and I was super excited. I was going to sunny San Diego, and I had these huge high hopes and dreams, and when I got there, I was like, oh my God, this is hard. And adulting is really hard. But I learned to be resilient, and I learned to stand up for myself, and I learned that you can get through hard things, whether it's all on your own or asking for help from coworkers, from family, from friends, from faculty who are still here. So be willing to change your plan. I guess that's what I'd say.
You're never stuck, right? That's something that a lot of us can feel, and it's in different generations. Don't get into, okay, I don't like my job every day, but I don't want to have change. You're never stuck. You can make a decision to change your life, whether it's career, whether it's personal, whatever it might be. Don't put yourself in that situation and be the 60-year-old person that's worked the same job for 45 years miserable.
I know, high school students, my name's David, excuse me, I'm a local resident, but high school students have a lot of choices when they have, when they pick a college to go to in their senior year in high school. And I'd like to know, first of all, what inspired some of you to attend Maine Maritime Academy? Maine Maritime Academy is, in the grand scheme of things, is a pretty small school compared to some, many others. And it's a pretty well-kept secret in a lot of places too. But I've known about it for a long, long time. But what inspired you to come to Maine Maritime Academy? And do you encourage younger people in your lives to look at Maine Maritime Academy as an option for college after high school?
I'll go. I feel very passionate about this question. When I graduated high school, I had no idea where I wanted to go. You know, I was logical enough to say I should start with a business degree because worst case scenario, that's a blanket major, probably find my path from there. But I knew myself personally that I needed a small student to teacher ratio to be successful. I ask a lot of questions. I needed somebody that was going to know my name to answer my questions if I had to go for office hours, needed additional help. So the idea of being a number to a professor that's sitting in the back of an auditorium was not going to work for me. So in the sense of what Maine Maritime had to offer, that checked one of the boxes. You know, staying on the logical track, I was from Maine. In-state tuition is a great thing. My parents really appreciated it. And also the fact that it provided the opportunity to play D3 sports. So I was a two-sport athlete. It was very important to me growing up and something I knew I wanted to do. Unfortunately, my dreams going to UConn were not going to happen. But, you know, I found a great home here, and as well as the campus itself. You know, I went and I visited Boston University when I was on my tours, and what I remember of the campus, there was no campus. It was all like brick buildings, and so to come here on site, to see what this place had to offer, go sailing for PE class credits, I thought that was phenomenal. Took advantage of it. So there was a lot of boxes that it checked for me, and as well as the return on investment from coming here. And once people learned about, you know, the careers you could get and the success rate of it all, everyone kept talking about the alumni support. Didn't understand it as a freshman then, but I certainly feel it, and I'm a part of it now as we're here today. So any chance I can to promote Maine Maritime and to come here, at least as a first choice, and if you can stick it out past the first year, I think everyone has to get past the first year to really appreciate it. That's what I would say.
Mine was kind of an aha moment. So I actually did a year of electrical engineering at UMaine before transferring here, and I took the opportunity to do a summer internship on my own. I was at the VZ power plant right here in Maine, and I remember I was doing a tour first, and I walked in and I saw that gas turbine, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And so all the guys were like, yeah, we're going to, you know, maybe have an internship program, and then they did. And I was with all Maine Maritime guys. And I mean, that summer for me was just like, this is what I want to do. And so they're like, oh, you got to go to Maine Maritime then. And of course it worked out very well. But, you know, we've touched on the internships, and those are really important, even if they're not required, like you guys had said, because the people you meet, but also the skills you build, and it might take you in a different direction. So recognizing what you really like, because for me, it was instant. So.
Hello, everybody. My name is Callie. I'm a junior in the Marine Bio program. So my question is primarily for Morgan and Genevieve, but please feel free to answer. Like I said, I'm a junior, and I'm kind of at the point where I'm not quite sure where I want to go after this or what I want to do. Is that like completely normal?
Absolutely. You know, with Marine Bio not being one of those ones that we didn't require a co-op, I wish I had gotten more experience earlier. I did get an internship on my own before, I think, if I remember correctly, I think it was between my sophomore and junior year. So that kind of helped me. I worked with Marine Mammals of Maine, if any of you know of them. They help rescue seals and pinnipeds and all that stuff. And it really showed me that I really knew that that's exactly what I wanted to do. It really solidified the fact that even though I grew up knowing that I wanted to do marine bio, that having that experience really proved it to me. And when I like I was saying earlier, when I graduated, I had this grand idea, and I worked at a local wildlife facility out in San Diego, and I loved it, but I didn't get paid. And so that made it really difficult because I loved it so much, but you have to make a living. And I jumped my idea a little bit, and I worked for the Department of Marine Resources after. Kind of like Genevieve, I didn't do lobsters, but I did biotoxins, so I was collecting water samples and shellfish samples, and so like I was the person who had to shut down closures and harvesting sites and things like that. And same thing, it was a really great experience, and it opened my eyes to being a little bit more willing to do laboratory work, because I didn't think I wanted to do that. But same thing, once winter hit, it stopped. So then I was like, oh crap, what am I gonna do next? And then I found myself in the oil field. So, you know, these ladies who work on the ships, when they bring them into port, somebody has to test them for EPA standards, so that's what I was doing. And shipping in the oil field does not sleep. I was working 24/7 and with no scheduled days off, and I was miserable and I hated it. And I worked with some really toxic people. So I knew, you know, that was not what I wanted to do. And then I fell into my position now, and I really love it. And I love the people that I work with, and I love what I'm doing. I'm in a laboratory, which I never thought I was going to do. And I'm working with, we build devices, so when you bring your dogs and cats to the vet and you test them for heartworm or Lyme disease, I'm the one testing those and making sure that they're good to go out into the world. So, no. I didn't know what I was going to do, and luckily I kept my mind open, and it led me to some really great opportunities, and it led me to some kind of opportunities, but through the way I learned what I really wanted to do and what I was willing to put up with as well.
So I thought I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was a freshman in high school. I was like, I'm going to go to Maine Maritime. I'm going to study marine biology. I was here. I figured out, I grew up in a fishing family, and through a lot of my youth, I was like, I do not want to be on a lobster boat the rest of my life. Then I got here, spent some time learning about resource management and things, and I was like, no, I do want to be on a lobster boat the rest of my life. But then, you know, I did the DMR thing. It was great, had fun. Summer's wonderful. November rolls around. You get told you need to be at a boat at 2 a.m. in, you know, Lord knows where. Less fun, long day. But so, you know, you can also go from knowing exactly what path you want to take and ending up a public high school teacher.
Can I just jump off? I know I'm not really, but you had said something. I think it's really important for the females in this room to know your worth when it comes to salary. And I say that because it's a real thing. I think we tend to undervalue ourselves a lot, especially in the fields that we're in. You have to make a living. You have a fantastic education under your belt. There's no reason that you can't make a living wage. So again, I hire people, and you know, women are constantly undercutting themselves as far as what they're asking for salary compared to the men. It's just the way it is. And I'll tell you, I recently just started another job 3 weeks ago, but before that, I had, you know, a few job offers, and one of them, my buddy worked there as well, and he's Maine Maritime grad, so he and I still take contact. And same job, he had like a year more experience specifically in that field, but we have the same education. They offered me $40,000 less than him. So know your worth, and make sure that you're accounting for your knowledge, right, and your experience. And don't be afraid to ask for the salary that you think you deserve, because we've got big, you know, we have, you know, when we hire someone, we've got a $40,000 range. And if you ask for 100 and I can go to 140, you're going to get 100, right? So make sure you pay attention to that. It's really important. $40,000.
I'm going to ask a question kind of related to that, but going back a little bit, and think about what advice would you give to your younger self now?
Going off the salary thing, so when I accepted my first job after out of school, granted it was in the middle of COVID, so everything was really weird, but I actually asked a professor what I should be paid for my base compensation, and then I would get commission on top of that. And they actually undercut me $20,000 than what I ended up accepting for. So if you think, like you can ask anyone, but if you think and you do the research, the industry knowledge, you got to put your best foot forward and believe in yourself that you're worth what you think you are. The worst they can say is no.
Right. And if they really want you, they're going to negotiate with you, right? And you know, I would say my younger self, you know, I've only been out of school 5 years. I say only, but I've done a lot in those 5 years. And I think with, you know, we're sitting here with a lot of intelligent women up here. You are all intelligent. You wouldn't be at this school if you weren't. And getting strong females in male-dominated fields, they want to promote you, and they want to promote you. Even if it's not something you want, they want to promote you, right? So knowing what that threshold is, I would really tell myself that, because I mean, execution segment lead was one of my titles, essentially director of construction for a renewable company. 5 years out of school, right? And it wasn't that I couldn't do the job, but I didn't want to do the job. So I would go back and tell myself to really pace yourself. And I wouldn't take back any of the knowledge I get, but you know your boundaries, know that 100-hour work weeks, you can't survive on those, right? When you can't work 24/7, you take a lot of sacrifices with that. And again, I kind of mentioned you want to prove yourself, and it's really important to work to, you know, your best, but you also have to set boundaries, because, and I don't want to sound disrespectful when I say this, but companies will take and take and take, and they just don't care. You know, unless you're working for a small mom and pop company, they will work you until, you know, you can't work anymore, and then they're still going to ask for more. So set those boundaries, you know, up front.
As far as advice I would give my younger self, I really wish that I had taken advantage more of the ship handling opportunities here. I'm in a position right now where the school I work for has a kelp farm, and we are, you know, trying to beg, borrow, and steal boats to use to harvest our kelp, to check on our kelp. So there's a lot of opportunities here that I really wish that I had taken better advantage of when I was present.
I think I'll add on that as well. As an IBL major here, I got very close to getting a minor, just naturally from the courses that you had to take. So I would say if you're a freshman, sophomore, know that that path is there, and just lay that out for yourself to say, like, well, could I also get a minor in, what was it, SVO now, I think is what it's called.
VOT.
I think it changed. But anyway, just to be aware of those different opportunities. So again, give yourselves more options, more industries, more ideas to pursue, as opposed to just staying tunnel vision within your own.
Anyone else want to jump in?
For this question, the younger self, I guess when I was here academically, I came to this college when I was 23, so I was out of high school for quite a while. The classes were really hard for me. But when you get out of school, I have a Coast Guard license, and I wouldn't have called myself an A+ student. And then my classmate, who was an A+ student, also has the same license as me. So that's something to remember. It didn't mean that I didn't try. It didn't mean that I didn't give it my all. So I think when I was here, I beat myself up a lot because I was 23 and I felt like I should have been better, I guess. And I just naturally struggled with a lot of these classes, and I felt like they were very demanding, but they were necessary. So I guess just if you're feeling like that, just keep pushing through, because you will graduate and you will get that job. I mean, there were days here, semesters here, where I didn't think that I was going to come back, just because of how hard that I felt like I was trying and it wasn't being reciprocated. Not by anything in particular. I was just really hard on myself in school. So just remember that. And also for any of these shipping majors with your Coast Guard licenses, if you fail a module, if you fail the process altogether, it doesn't mean your life's over. So just take that as a grain of salt. I had some difficulty with my last upgrade, and just because I didn't do celestial navigation for 2 years trying to get that sea time. So I had to go back to Boston a couple times, but it didn't mean that I was worth less than anybody else, and I got that upgrade, and I'm about ready to sit for my 1,600-ton master's license. So there is life, so be gentle to yourself.
To bounce off of the Coast Guard exams, if I was where you guys were right now, back then, I would start studying for Coast Guards early. Everyone says it's easy, sure, it's memorizing, all right? You're not a good test taker, not good at memorizing. Start early. I spent maybe 2 weeks before the exam, and I should have spent a lot more time than 2 weeks. So study early for Coast Guard exams.
Hi, my question's primarily for Jenna, but also for consideration for the rest of the panel. The history of Maine is really the story of how we use our natural resources. And currently in Maine, our natural resources are under threat, such as climate change and rising sea temperatures. But there's also opportunities. Offshore wind looks like it's going to happen. So I'm wondering what the role of women, in particular Maine Maritime Academy women, is in writing the next chapter of Maine's natural resource story.
I guess the first thing I would say that is super exciting to me is that anytime I'm in a space where we are talking natural resources, we're talking with people who work in the state, who are managing our resources, I see so many younger women in these science roles, and it's awesome. You watch Shark Week on Animal Planet, it's shark bros everywhere. You don't see that, but here, most of my classes were with women. Most of the people that I see in leadership roles in the sustainable natural resource area are women. And I think that is a really important role to fill. I think that in terms of being kinder to our environment, taking advantage of processes that we can use, I think a lot of marine aquaculture actually has some good benefits. Kelp growing especially, but any bivalve or marine algae aquaculture, we can really do some bioremediation of the damage we've done to our water. And I'm in an aquaculture and shared waters course right now, and some of the really awesome questions are coming from young women farmers. They want to look for plastic alternatives for their gear. It's awesome. So I think that really in this realm of kind of battling climate change and sustainability, there is a lot of opportunity for anyone who has education in biology, ecology, and understanding these systems, how we can improve them, and how we can understand how they're changing.
Awesome. Anyone have a question?
I do. So first, hello everyone. My name is Trisha Carver. I'm the women's volleyball coach and associate director of athletics in Mariners Athletics. And I do want to thank you so much for being here this afternoon. This is an event that I look forward to every year, and I'm so happy to see so many of our athletes here this afternoon. And I really appreciate your time and all the wisdom that you're bringing for us here. And it is such a strong showing for our alumni network. So thank you for being here. My question is really about kind of the interview process. So we have people who are, ranging through trying to look for just one opportunity at the end of their freshman year, the whole way up to getting out into the workforce. And I observe them on phone, Zoom, sometimes in person, real quick after the career fair, and just thinking about that process of, well, what questions should I ask? How do I do this particular format for interview? How important is my resume? Those sorts of things. So I'm wondering if you could just share your thoughts about, preparing and how to succeed in that particular area.
I would say first, research your role and research the company that you're trying to hire with. Companies really love to hear all about the good things that they do. And you want to know what you're getting yourself into. Not only looking at what they put on the website for these are the duties that you're going to do, but look up, average salaries for that position in the area or in competing companies. Look at, how many women are working there, so you can kind of get an idea of the climate. Are you really going to be somebody that you are going to be the only girl or woman there? or there's only going to be a handful of you, and I mean, you're preparing for it now. There's 15% women. But, you know, research. And with researching comes confidence. Be confident in yourself. You know your stuff. You went through this. MMA isn't like a liberal arts school where everything's general. Your instructors are professionals in their field. They know what they're doing, and they're really great teachers. So you know your knowledge. You know you earned your degree. You really did. And so just having the confidence in yourself and be yourself. Don't ever try to seem more professional or, you know, say certain things because it makes you seem more professional. If you love your dog, say that you love your dog. Or, you know, if you love your kids, or you like to go hiking, or you brew your own beer, or whatever. People like that. And companies really like having individuals. Yeah, it's harder on global scales. You know, you're not meeting with the president of your company, but you're dealing with your manager or your supervisor, and they know you on a personal level, and they really like to have people who are dynamic.
So I would just bounce off of that, actually, a couple points. So first off, I've always found in interviews that I've done myself, as well as people that I've hired, a lot of times resumes don't do you any justice, right? They list out your technical skills, what you've done in the past. That conversation's what counts. And the people that I've hired and the, you know, the interviews that I get offers from, it's conversation, right? You're sitting there, you're joking, you're laughing. So there's no need to go in there nervous. I mean, they understand, right, that you're interviewing. They completely get it. And I think it's just something to really, you know, be cognizant of, that they understand the process that you're in as well. And then, yeah, just in general, again, your resume is really important, but you as a person, and then you hit on know the job. And that can be really difficult sometimes. So something that's really important to pay attention to, though, especially in the job market we're in, this is just a reality, I'm gonna be very blunt, you know, the job market we're in, where there's, you know, it's really difficult to hire people. Sometimes companies make a lot of false promises. Or they have good intentions of saying, okay, you're only gonna work 8 to 4:30, right? That's their ideal, that's what that position should be. But it's not. So if you have the opportunity to see the people that are working there, get on the job site or do a job shadow for the day, you'll get a sense of the vibe. Because the worst thing to happen is to take a job where you're told Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, and you're actually putting in 12s, and you're doing the job of 2 or 3 different people. And unfortunately, that's the situation we're in right now with the job market.
Yeah, I just echo a lot of what's already been said, but just taking the opportunity during the interview process, like, it's not just them interviewing you, like, you're interviewing the company, and, you know, like, if you get, like, weird feelings about it, like, you know, listen to your gut, ask questions to really understand, like, how they operate and the culture. Yeah, so take that as an opportunity to ask questions yourself. And then the other thing is just be yourself. You know, if it isn't a good fit, you want to know that from the beginning. Like, you don't want to act a certain way during the interview process, and then, like, when you are actually being yourself day to day, and maybe, like, I don't know, something you said was like a little, I don't know, like, if you're trying to make yourself feel, sound better than you are or something, like, they're gonna see, like, the real you eventually. And so, like, it's just best to put yourself out there, and see, you know, if it's going to fit that way.
I just have one more thing. All the people that I've hired, the only thing that I really, truly look for, because I do all the training, I have a very specialized business, I just want to see somebody that's going to be their genuine self when they come and talk to me, and I also want to see that they have a willingness to learn. I don't want somebody to come and interview for my job and tell me I already know everything that you're going to hire me for. I want to see that they have a willingness to learn from me to fill their position that I'm going to hire them for. They can come with absolutely zero knowledge, but as long as they are teachable and trainable and they're their genuine self, and I think they're a good person, it's a pretty good chance that I would hire them.
And if I could just add one more thing, because I thought about it with Morgan, you know, a lot of us are probably, you know, a lot of us are, and then you guys will be looking to go into really big companies. Looking at the leadership team is really important. How many people are on that leadership team? How many people are female on that leadership team? What is the diversity of the company? We're still kind of in a generation a little bit where we have a little bit older generation. You'll have a lot of companies that have a very specific type of leadership team. It doesn't mean it's a bad company, but it's something that in your interview you're gonna kind of say, "Hi, how's the diversity here?" Or figure out in a way, are there females that are going to be leading, or you know what I'm saying? Because I think it's really important to not become the poster child for a company because you're their female hire. And so you're all of a sudden on every commercial, every website, everything because you're the diversity hire. It's nice to be wanted, but it's sometimes not a great position to be in, so.
So I actually have a question that kind of piggybacks off of Coach Carver's. So I know when I was looking for an internship, I was really nervous about it, and I had a lot of anxiety because I've never worked in a professional environment before, and I just kept thinking, well, what if I don't know what I'm doing when I get there? So I was just wondering if you guys have any advice to people who are in that position now.
No one knows what they're doing even now. We were talking about that. No, you learn. Everyone learns.
I was just going to say, we kind of touched upon it a little bit before. Asking questions is going to be critical, and just being honest in the sense that I don't know this, or just saying, the way you explain this to me isn't sinking in. Can you try to say it a different way? Just being, like I said, honest and transparent about how you may learn a different way, and so you're not going to know on the first day, what am I going to be doing? So asking questions, being comfortable to ask questions, and I hate to say this, being comfortable being uncomfortable. It's just something that's going to follow you through, and just got to see yourself through it.
I've got a couple of things to say on this topic because I have worked with interns at a summer camp setting. So it's an educational setting, but we've talked about soft skills. That's a big deal. Being willing to learn. And I'm going to sound like the old lady of the group, but learning to put your phone away when it's time is a big deal. And it makes a really good impression on the people who work with you. And yeah, like I said, I sound like the old lady, but it really does matter.
I think the bottom line is companies don't have a lot of expectations out of interns. You're there to learn. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just soak up everything while you have that experience. But any intern's going to be a junior person who is there for the opportunity to learn as much as they can.
I'd also say be open to criticism. When your boss or one of your coworkers tells you, oh, you're not doing it correctly, or, you can do it better, they're not doing it to be mean. They're doing it because they want you to succeed. Because if they have employees who are crappy, it's going to make the company crappy. So they want you to be better because they're better as a whole. So don't take it personally. I know that is much easier said than done. And sometimes you have to take a step back and be like, okay, maybe I am doing this wrong, and being willing to admit that goes a long way.
Awesome, thank you.
I have one more thing I wanted to say. Sorry, I just thought of it. Even really experienced people are terrified to start something new. My husband recently left shipping as a chief engineer to come home and be self-employed, and he was so scared to do it. And he put it off for a long time. He wanted to get his chief engineer's license, so that put it off. But he did not finally pull the plug on shipping until my business was doing well enough that I said, honey, you can do it, because even if you belly flop, I've got us. It's not like our family's going to go under. And he was so scared for so long. As he graduated 11 years ago. He's a chief engineer. He's obviously very smart and successful, and he was still terrified. So new things are scary for everybody. Just because you're an intern, it literally doesn't matter.
And flexibility, I'd say, too. So I created an internship program when I was director of construction, and the only thing I expected out of my interns was to be flexible, especially in construction. And most everyone up here, our jobs are all over the place, and things, wax and wane, and they change all the time. So just to be flexible and soak in any information that you can. It might be, minute, but it will really help you in the long run.
Awesome, thank you.
Hello, my name is Caitlin. I'm in the International Business and Logistics program. But my main question is kind of, I guess it could be for all of you, but logistics majors. When you were searching for your internships, how did you, I guess, keep yourself going if you got like denied, or if you struggled to get any feedback from anybody? Like, what did you do to put your best foot forward to keep applying or put yourself out there?
I can take this. So I didn't think that I was going to graduate on time because I couldn't find a frickin' internship. It wasn't until actually this panel, a woman from Siemens came, and what she was saying really resonated with me, and I asked to come to dinner with her after and just talk shop and see if there was some kind of connection, and there was. So she ended up pushing my resume to the Siemens branch in Maine, so I got to stay locally so I could save some money. I was open to going anywhere, but it just worked out that way. So yeah, I would stay persistent and lean on your alumni if you can. I mean, your professors know alumni, and I would hope that they're still keeping in touch with them if there are openings. So yeah, I would say just stay in touch with your people and be active on campus to see if there's anything else left over. But I get it.
Megan, in the VOT program, that kind of feeds perfectly into my question. Mine was, in terms of like, you know, a mentor or like networking, like whether, you know, you were the one who managed to network and find, you know, a good connection, or if you were the one who turned around and helped somebody else up behind you. Like, if you, I know that's like, it's a very scary thing to, you know, to try and step out and network, you know, and to put yourself out there and try to make new connections. So if you could give an example of a time that paid off, you know, and kind of enforce like why that's so important.
I'll take this. That question is pretty personal for me because I graduated from the VOT program. So how it works is we pretty much have our own co-ops every summer. So they're like cadet shipping experiences every summer, right? And you need the amount of tonnage, correct amount of tonnage, correct amount of sea time, and you need to know if it's going to be inland, coastwise, that type of ocean time to sit for the license you desire. I was really obnoxious, and I worked with Deb in the co-op office. I did the student work program in the co-op office because I wanted to know of all the opportunities, who was coming. I did all the interviews, even if I didn't get it, even if I didn't even want to work for the company. I did all of it. And actually, my sophomore year, I don't know, I had this burning desire where I wanted to work for Edison's West, okay? And it was like a week before school was done, and I didn't have a co-op confirmed, and that really screws up everything. And then all of a sudden, I had dinner with this guy from Moran Towing. That same night, I got an offer from Moran Towing in San Juan, Puerto Rico for ship assist, and I got an offer for Edison's West. And it was because I was relentless, and you have to be in that type of program. Doesn't matter if it's IBL or, you know, SVO, VOT. You really have to advocate for yourself because nobody's going to set it up for you. And I was very, like, I wanted to graduate here, and I wanted to get a 1,600-ton license. I didn't know if it was going to be near coastal or oceans. I ended up with an oceans license because that's what Crowley wanted me to have. But I'm thankful that I pushed to get over 100 gross tons for my co-ops, and they were all ocean. That was the biggest thing. But you really got to start early and advocate for yourself. And go to the workshops, talk to all the people at the career fair. You know, if the recruiter gives you their card, call them, email them. It's kind of annoying, but eventually they'll remember you. So that's my biggest thing. If you get all that sea time in school, it really helps you out in the long run because then you can, you know, if you only have a goal of being a 500-ton meet, but then that leads to a 1,600-ton, and just because of the vessel I ended up on, I now am able to have unlimited tonnage in my license. So, you know, I graduated with a 200-ton license, and I have I'm in the process of being a third mate unlimited, about to sit for my 1600-ton master. So, but that started from being obnoxious with my co-ops. So.
I would add too, as far as networking goes, don't be afraid to ask people to put your resume in front of people they know. Don't be afraid to try and seek those connections, because like that's part of what you're paying for here is like the Maine Maritime Mafia. Like anyone who has gone here will go to bat for you to get you what you want. Like that's a card you have in your deck, use it.
That's what I was also going to say. Use that MMA name. So many people know it. With my internship with Marine Mammals of Maine, one of the founders is an MMA alum. And I knew that, so when I had put my application in, I made sure to say that I was a marine bio major at MMA currently, and I was one of the first ones that she hired. And even since being in the professional world, working at IDEX, which is kind of out of the scope of MMA, I've met so many people in IDEX and across the plane, but then also higher ups, just because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm Morgan, I went to MMA, and they're like, oh my gosh, my son goes there. And so now I have these higher ups who know my name, and that's going to help me build a rapport with them, but then also it's going to help me move up, because they're going to remember you because they went to MMA, and it is a mafia. You meet so many people.
Best possible way.
Yes, in the best way. You meet so many people all over the world. I mean, I don't ship out, but I have so many friends who are all over the world, and they meet people, and then I travel, and they're like, oh my gosh, I know so-and-so, he ships off the coast of Africa. Like, it's crazy, and you might not enjoy your time here because it's so isolated, and it can be hard sometimes, but you are so grateful that you are from here.
And I'd say too, know the players of the game, and I say that coming from heavy corporate life, of it's kind of like a chess game, right? So know who's in the room, know who you would benefit networking from most. So my second summer, I interned with Dynegy. They said I could go anywhere in the country, whatever plant I wanted to go to, because I had spent a summer with them already. I went to Mass Power, and I got to tell you, the last place I wanted to be, no offense, was Worcester, Mass, right? But I went there because that was the Northeast hub for all of the VPs, right? So that was a networking opportunity. I took the hit of Worcester, Massachusetts, right, to get the networking. So things like that are important.
I guess kind of take a different spin on networking, and kind of what you could do now is if you develop a rapport not only with your professors, but also your fellow classmates, it may not be when you graduate like that first year, but the second, third year, your fellow alumni may reach out to you and say, hey, there's a job opportunity. Would you potentially be interested in this? That's what happened with me when I first graduated. Like my bio said, I was with Walmart Logistics, but I had a fellow, a previous teammate, and she kind of essentially headhunted me and said, I think I have a job for you that you would be great at. And so it's not necessarily networking, but what you could do today could help you not the next year, maybe the second year, third year, post-graduation, that could get you into an even better situation in the future. And I say that I've done the same thing for other fellow alumni. Currently my team is consisted of, one is my old roommate, two of them were previous teammates, and another one is another student athlete. So it just, again, it's not external networking, but what you could do now could help build your future.
And the person somebody's being mean to on Yik Yak might be their boss. Sorry, that's my plug against Yik Yak. All right, we're going to finish up with this question. And then just as a reminder, as many of the panelists that are able are going to join us for dinner. And we would enjoy all of you to come to the dining hall with us for dinner. I have some extra meal tickets. If you are not on a meal plan, I'd be happy to bring you to dinner with us.
Hi again. So Morgan and Katie, you guys talked a little bit about being in unhealthy environments or untruthful environments. This is for everybody. What do you recommend doing if you find yourself in a position where you thought the company checked all of your boxes, but once you get there, you realize that they did not, but you still want to remain professional about it?
So it's a difficult one, right? And especially being new. out of, just graduating, but you gotta have the conversations, and you just gotta face it, and there's a way to do it professionally. But you just sit down and say, hey, this was my understanding when I got hired, and I'm not seeing this as, kind of what's happening, and I just want to understand your expectations and understand, what my expectations were, and have that conversation. And a lot of companies will go, whoa, we don't want to lose this person, we'll figure it out. And the companies that don't do that, it's a huge red flag anyways. So job hopping happens a lot in our industry, you know what I mean? Some, a lot of industries they don't, but I mean, a lot of people job hop in our industry just because of opportunities, whether it be salary. So if you're in a toxic environment, get yourself out of it. It's not going to get better, if you've had those conversations, and you need, again, self-preservation, right? You'd rather be able to explain that, okay, it just wasn't a good fit for me, than, oh, I got fired, So definitely, listen to your gut. I think someone had said about the interview, listen to your gut during the interview process and during, your career with them.
I would say first and foremost, stand up for yourself. I had a specific situation where I had the knowledge of this particular instrument that we were installing, and I had an older gentleman blatantly ignore me. And he was talking to the man next to me who also didn't know what he was doing. And at one point, the man next to me was pretty much verbatim saying what I was saying, and the guy was listening. And I got fed up with it, and I was like, you know what, this is ridiculous. And I said, if you want to know, here are the instructions, good luck. And I walked out of the situation because I knew I was going to say something a lot worse. And after that, I went to my manager, and I was like, this is ridiculous, and this is not okay. And this is somebody who is fairly high up in the company. And as a woman, and especially as a young woman, that does not make me want to work for them at all. And eventually I did leave because it was perpetual. I had the conversation, and unfortunately it didn't change. And so as soon as the next opportunity came about, I took it, and I did not regret it at all. So stand up for yourself, have the confidence.
And Morgan and I were talking actually about this before we started the panel. Stand up for yourself, like she said, and if they call you bossy or they call you something else, whatever. It's just the way it is, right? You'd rather stand up for yourself and, oh, she's pushy or bossy or this and that, but really you're not. You're just being assertive, or you're standing up for yourself or doing what's right, but as a female, you get labeled something different. You might act the same exact way as your male, coworker, but, that's not how it's perceived. And honestly, I work in construction, and I could care less. I don't know about anyone here, but I could care less what those men think about me. I mean, it's great to get along with everyone, but at the end of the day, you're paid to do a certain job. And I've had some tough jobs, like owner rep, where you're, public enemy number one. You're out there telling the guys that they're not doing their job correctly and to fix it. And you just can't care, So definitely stand up for yourself, like Morgan said, and do your best.
I would add on to this too. If you're in a position where you're in a job or a company where you do think, like, you believe in what they're doing, but there's something that's not great, you can also, if you're dedicated to that, take the opportunity, work there, work up in leadership, and start changing stuff yourself. One of the schools I worked in went through several administrators over the course of several years. There was a lot of disorganization. There was a lack of leadership. And I was able to be a lot of the change I wanted to see in that place. And that was equally gratifying. Don't kill yourself in a toxic environment. But if you have an opportunity to be that positive change, don't wait for somebody else to take that chance. You do it.
Sorry. There's no shame in leaving a job that does not grow you or that doesn't sit well with you and your morals. There's no reason that you have to stay in a position that isn't good for you. And there's no shame in resigning.
I just had something to add also, kind of what Katie and Morgan were saying. In a workplace environment, I've never had a toxic situation, but we also go to a lot of docks in a lot of areas that haven't fully accepted that women might be in an in-charge position. So that's always a delight when we go there. On the opposite watch, the other crew, I have a lady chief mate, and I respect her a lot, and she's full of knowledge, and I love working extra with her, working over with her. She was there when I first got to the vessel, and it was great to see another woman. And I just think it's funny because back in December, I came back to work to help out. They were a little short-handed. I couldn't end up staying, but we were going to a dock in Louisiana, and a dock I've been to before, and I was up, and I was on deck, and I was communicating with my captain, calling the boat in, how many feet to go ahead, stuff like that. I was at the rail, and you have to talk to the dock guy, and he wouldn't really communicate with me, and once we were up alongside, tried to be like, okay, we're going to put this hose here and this hose here. He just like wouldn't communicate with me, and then he's like, where's your chief mate? And I was like, oh, she's coming, you know, like, oh, she's also a female, but she's coming. So she came out here, and she's like, what seems to be the issue? And he just looked dumbfounded, like it was like a wild animal, you know, but there are two of them. So it's just kind of one of those things where I was never offended by it, because it's one of those things like, I did my job, and they weren't able to properly communicate with me. I don't know if it was just, they had just never seen it or what the deal was, but I mean, we just laughed it off. And that's kind of, if you're ever put in that situation, you kind of just have to laugh it off, so.
You have to laugh it off, because there's going to be so many times, and you're just going to be like, you know, that thick skin that they talk about, you got to have the thick skin, right? And you got to be able to laugh things off. I mean, I pulled into a construction site once, and the female security guard goes, oh, are you the nurse today? And I'm like, sure. You know, it's just like, you know, laugh it off and understand that, you know, people are still evolving with females. But I mean, look at this table up here, and look at all of you, and look at, you know, I know the females that I have worked with, that I do work with. I mean, they are strong, they are smart, and they will work circles around more than half the men that we work with. So, you know, it's a pretty cool time right now.
I will add on to that to take a different note too, in the sense of a toxic environment. It's not always male driven.
No.
So been involved in situations where it's, you know, female to female, in the sense that, you know, managers or coworkers that can add to a very uncomfortable working environment. So I'm in corporate life. You know, I don't have to deal with construction sites or vessels or guys on the docks, but in the sense of the corporate office life, you know, you can do your own due diligence of, you know, maybe taking a step back and just taking a beat to say, how is this person communicating? Am I reading this wrong? I work with a lot of international people, a lot of different countries, different ethnicities, and sometimes it can just be a total cultural norm that we may not be used to. But if it truly is toxic, documenting instances, talking with HR, talking with your manager, if that's the appropriate level, you know, doing your due diligence to make sure that you've covered your basis, and to make sure that if you are finally fed up, that you've got your back, you know, you've got your history, you've got your evidence, and or you can really say, I've done everything I could to make this work if you wanted to stay, and then leave that with that.
I wanted to add too, because we, you know, part of the question was to maintain professionalism in a toxic environment. So I'd say, like, you know, you've worked so hard to build this reputation that we've talked about, and to build this network. Like, if you find yourself in an environment that does not bring out the best in you, you know, like, you definitely should leave, but do so professionally. While it might be satisfying to, like, tell someone off, or, you know, just remember that, you know, in the long term, it's going to be better to, again, like, talk to HR and, you know, remain really professional about the situation. And we talked about interviewing too, like, in future interviews, you don't need to bring up, like, terrible experiences you've had at past companies, like, in detail. You can, you know, remain professional in those instances as well.
The industry is small. Remember that. Everyone knows everyone.
Awesome. I wanted to thank you guys all again for coming. I know I learned so much from you, and I bet everyone learned a lot. So thank you again. We really appreciate it.